Welcome to another installment of How I Dial in Delay. Today we're going to play Delay Designer in the Axe-Fx 3, inspired by some vintage delay units. Whenever we think of, say, digital delay, it's really easy to overlook the supporting circuitry that happens either side of the digital process. For example, in an old Roland or Yamaha rack delay, you would have things like emphasis filters and compression before going to the 12-bit conversion process. Then you've got your standard delay line, but then you're coming out into the analog domain and you've kind of got to compensate for that pre-filtering and that compression with, more filtering and expansion. So I want to get into that just to try to cop some really tasty rack-inspired tones. But first, we need to go over the basics of how you can basically design your own delay algorithm in the Axe-Fx 3. We're going to start with a single digital mono delay. All I've done is set the time to 375 milliseconds. There is no feedback. The mix is at 100%. The bypass mode is set to mute effects in because I'm in parallel. And what I'm going to get is a really pristine sounding repeat at exactly the same volume of whatever I play in, like this. Very straightforward there. If I wanted more repeats, and I just want to stay in the delay block, I could say set the feedback to 30% and I'll get this. The only issue there is, what if I wanted to have some fun with the actual feedback loop? I wanted to place some effects in there. I can't do that unless it's the built-in EQ or modulation or the ducker or things like the diffusion. There's actually a lot of things that we can do in the delay block. But what if I wanted to put like distortion in there, or I wanted to put a flanger on there, for example? I'll show you how to do that. Pretty straightforward. We're going to set the feedback to 0 and we're going to create our own feedback loop. What I'm going to do is the output of this delay is going to go to a feedback send block. And that feedback send is going to feed back into the feedback return block over here. And what I have now is the return level of this block is now my feedback control. If I set that to 30%, check. Now I have the ability to place any other block from the Axe-Fx 3 only on the repeats. So normally, say I connected this delay in parallel and I didn't have the send and feedback return, and I took, a flanger block, for example. Let's do that. I'm going to do the FAS flanger. I really like the way that one sounds. I'll crank the rate up and I'll turn the mix to 100%. All of my delay repeats are going to have this flanger on them now. But what if I wanted that first repeat pristine and I only wanted the flanger on all the other repeats? I could simply move it out of the way of my incoming dry signal. So this right here is only processing whatever comes out of the delay there, no dry guitar. It's going to be subtly different, but effective. So the effect is far less pronounced, but I think it's far more usable in a musical context. All right, of course, the other thing we could do is we could just simply filter these repeats. I could use something like a parametric EQ block, and I could go in here and just set these filters to be blocking filters. And let's say I set this one somewhere around 6K and this one somewhere around 100 Hertz. What's going to happen now is each successive repeat is going to be filtered out by this parametric EQ. But of course, in that case, my first repeat is still really pristine. If I want all of the repeats to have this EQ on them, I simply place the parametric EQ in line here, and I could increase the slope of the low pass filter there, and it's going to give me something akin to like an old analog delay, which would use these bucket brigade chips, which were kind of noisy in the high end, so you would filter out a lot of high end to get rid of that noise. You get this. And if I wanted, say, modulation, I could get it from the delay block, or I could create my own modulation. Again, I could use a flanger, I could use a chorus, I could use the stereo tri-chorus as my modulation of my delay. Why not? Let's crank this rate up a little bit, and I get this. So there's so much character on there. It's so cool. It's different to what's available in the delay block. And if you wanted to place a metal zone on there, or you wanted to place, a filter or something like that, you can do that as well and really fine tune your own delay effects. So that's the basic idea. But I set out with this because I wanted to try to emulate the kind of filtering and compression you would get on an old 12-bit delay. So let's take this to the next level. Let's have some fun right here. So I have a single delay line here again, and I've got the basic feedback, send, and return setup. But going into the delay, I have a pretty subtle high shelf filter, and then coming out of it, I have kind of the reverse going on. I've also got a dynamics processor compressing the signal before it hits the delay, and then I've got an expander expanding the signal as it comes out of the delay. What I did was I actually looked at the Roland SDE 3000 service manual, which is here, and you actually get a kind of breakdown of the pre-emphasis filters. Here it says the gain is at unity at 1K and it's at 2.5 at 10K. You can kind of scroll through all of this as well and look at things like the phase, what they're doing on the way out of the delay, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Strymon also have a white paper accompanying their dig delay where they basically give you a breakdown of, say, the 12-bit PCM delays. So there's a pre-emphasis filter, there's a compressor, you've got the digital part of the circuit. So these are really useful resources that I've called on. So using that information, I've gone with this particular setup. I've also set the bypass mode of the filters and compressors to a control switch so I can turn them all on and off in one go. I'll turn this parametric EQ off over here, and we'll just have a listen to what this subtle filtering, compression, and expansion does to the basic delay tone. I can then, of course, add the parametric EQ filter in there, and we get this. Building on that idea, I've now switched over to one of the USA lead models, so I'm going to have a whole bunch of distortion, which I like, and I'm using a dual delay. I've gone a lot harder with the parametric EQ filtering, but I still have that filtering and companding circuit around the delay. This sounds really sweet. So I had these gigantic delays happening, but the filtering and the dynamics processing there means that they can still sound really big and wide, but they're not interfering and like muddying up my main tone there. So I really like that dual delay. And then of course, because we're playing around with delay blocks, I had to try the multi-tap delay. And I had a whole bunch of fun with this, again, using these pre-emphasis filters and companders. I've got a quad delay here. Again, no feedback from the actual multi-delay block at all. I'm just using the parametric EQ and the other tricks that we use, and this is sounding super sweet. Keep in mind that the feedback network in the usual quad tap multi-delay is going to be different to the feedback network that I've set up here, but I like it. The real fun with this, though, begins when you start adding diffusion to either your delay block or your multi-tap delay. So let's add, say, about 30% diffusion mix. Now this is starting to sound kind of like the Plex delay block in the Axe-FX 3. This is amazing. But my absolute favorite scene that I've dialed in so far is scene 8 on this preset, where I've got the multi-tap delay, and I've got the delay, and there's a whole bunch of diffusion, and there's all this filtering. But I've actually had some fun with the sort of pre and de-emphasis filters here, where I've really gone hard with the shelving filters. So rather than them be like, 2.5 dB, I've brought the frequency down to about 4K on each of them. This one is giving it a 6 dB boost, and this one is giving it a 6 dB cut. I've also increased the amount of compression and expansion to really emphasize and de-emphasize the effect. So this is really, really cool. It kind of sounds like the existing Plex reverb in the Axe-FX 3, but it's got a character all its own. Absolutely glorious, right? I'm going to just go ridiculous with this now and add a tremolo and a phaser to all of it. I'll play you out on all of that, but I really hope this video gives you some inspiration and some insights into how you can build your own custom delay modes in the Axe-FX 3. This is merely scratching the surface. Once you have those feedback send and return blocks in there, you can basically do anything you like. I was trying the filtering found in old rack delays. You could try stuff like add modulation, add distortion, add tremolo and a phaser, like I said, try diffusion, try add reverb. We've got so many amazing tools in this unit that we can use the units of the past and their design to inspire and inform new sounds that maybe nobody's ever heard before. And that's why I love the Axe-FX. I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Comments, get them in below if there's anything you heard in here that you want clarified, and I'm gonna go nuts with this sound. Cheers.